Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon. It is my pleasure to share with you today. Now, let me just start my windows. Yes. All right. Today, I'm going to talk about expanding your positive impact. And we do that all the time. We wake up, we want to expand our impact. But today, we're going to focus on EQ and how do we then use EQ for the workplace. And especially when times are good, everything's fine. But when times are difficult, when there's conflict, how do we then use EQ for that? Let's start with something simple. Relax, enjoy yourself, and answer this poll that I'm curious to know. If you could gift yourself either more EQ or more IQ, and IQ, let me just define that in this space. It's your ability it's a cognitive skill, basically, your ability to reason, your ability to do logic and problem solving. If that's a superpower that you want, or is it the other superpower, which is an EQ superpower, which talks about your ability to understand yourself, to understand your emotions, understand others, communicate it in a way that navigates conflicts and challenges. If you had one gift, Christmas is coming, one gift to gift yourself, which one would it be? Which one would you select for yourself? It doesn't mean that the other one's zero. The other one's just like where you are right now. What's the additional that you want to gift? But before that, let's just take a step back. I work with a lot of organizations, and the question that we often ask, or the question that we often think about and try to solve and try to transform, is the question about how do we nurture, how do we grow leaders? And leaders here doesn't mean that it's just someone in the top of the hierarchy of the organization. You could be a self-leader, you could be a people leader, and you could be an organizational leader. But how do we nurture leaders, not only for today, but for tomorrow, for our future? And this is a question that all the organizations, most of the organizations, are racing to answer, because that is about making our organization sustainable for our future. That's a question that we ask ourselves a lot. Now, one of the things about the future is that, well, there's a lot of change that's going to happen. We know that for a fact, change. And so one of the things that a lot of organizations talk about and we work on quite a bit is ability to thrive in change. Now, I use the word thrive because I hear a lot of people saying, I'm just surviving. Oh, change coming, change is constant. So I'm always trying to survive in change. And we said, hey, surviving is not fun. We want to thrive. We want to succeed and change, come on, we want to thrive, and we're excited about what change can bring. And that's about allowing us a certain capability to thrive in change. And when we talked about this, we also talked about, hey, thriving in change is not enough for the future. It's just not enough if we want to create the future that we really love. Thriving in change alone is also boring. The other challenge that leaders need to understand is that the future doesn't only talk about me. It's thriving in change together. And that's a capability. And that's the culture that we want to create. Most organizations need to create this because we need to tap on the collective intelligence of everyone. Now, thriving in change alone, sometimes we say, oh, it's difficult, but it's like, yeah, all right, I can try. When I say thrive and change together, people go like, oh, that means that I've got to navigate so many differences. There's a lot of conflict, and it's going to be tough. And so the question is about how do we then build capability in navigating through conflict? And the first thing we think about conflict is that, boom, it's about someone's not allowing me to do something. Someone's holding me back. Someone's really difficult. And that's one of the ways to think about it. And I wanted to share with you the other way that I think about conflict. And that comes from a quote. that I thought was really nice, and I wanted to share this with you. And that's from Kenneth K. He wrote the book, Turning Personal Conflict into Productive Teamwork. And that's about managing conflicts constructively. Conflict doesn't have to be bad. It can be constructive if we can harness the creativity of ourselves and others and develop the ability to do that. So there are a couple of key shifts that as I speak to leaders, I notice quite a bit, and they are difficult. And as you can see in the picture, it's a shift. There is a risk to this, but leaders also know that if they don't shift, they are going to plateau. It's going to flatten. They're not going to grow, and most people want to grow. So let me just share with you some of the key shifts. The first shift is moving from me to we. Logically, no problems. The challenge from moving from me to we comes from the application of it, the trust of letting go, control in a lot of ways. If you have heard some people say, if I want to do something right, I got to do it myself. That's a me concept. But how do we then learn to do the we concept? And that's not easy because you need to apply certain abilities. The second one is to move from the follow mindset to the co-creation mindset. And the follow mindset is not wrong because maybe I think in the 30s it starts, we said what's important for a leader. We said, one, you need to be visionary. You needed to be strategic and then follow this strategy, you're done. But the future is not like that. The future requires a lot of collaboration because the information is everywhere and we need that collective knowledge. And so it's about co-creating. How do we create a leaders now need to learn how to co-create culture of collaboration and really harness the genius of everyone rather than just one person. So that's another key shift because we don't learn that so much in the past. We didn't rely on that in the past, but we need to do that in the future. The third one is moving from relying just on IQ, and today what we're going to talk about is EQ, because that's more like vague. EQ to some people are just be nice, don't quarrel with other people, that's EQ. But let me bust this myth for now. And what I'm going to do is EQ, because it's vague and complex, we're going to stretch it out. We're going to separate some of the components of EQ for you. So to make it easier to understand EQ, we use a 2x2 box. So one is about self, and the other one is social, which is others. And EQ is also about internal, what's happening inside you, and external, how do you show up? What's your behaviors that others can understand and read from those behaviors? So the EQ dimension, very simply, is quite, if you stretch it out, it becomes this. And let me just talk a little bit around it. So the first one in EQ, before anything else, it's about yourself. How self-aware are we? How much, and I want you, as I speak about this, to think about yourself. How am I scoring on this? So self-awareness. Do I know what's valuable to me? What's at stake? And all that. So the cause and effect. And also, I'm happy to share that another example of self-awareness is self-appreciation. And a lot of us sometimes don't appreciate ourselves enough. So part of EQ is understanding yourself. Then the next one is social recognition. And the way I think about social recognition and help others think about it is when you walk into a room, can you read the room? When you go onto online, can you read online? The social connection, it's about understanding others, and that's empathy. Appreciation, it's not even anything outside yet, it's inside you. Can you appreciate others? And do you want the connectedness? Can you see the connectedness of things around you? That's part one of that. And it talks about what's happening inside me and what's happening around me. It's a radar that helps you read the situation. Then there is the external behavior piece, which is the self-regulation. So I'm aware, but can I regulate myself to show up consistently, and to adapt to the situation around me. And the fourth one is social management. And that's about putting it all together and how do I influence others in the face of conflict. What I want to do is to share with you some thoughts about that. Maybe a tip or two. Now, one tip I could say about how does EQ help us navigate conflict? One way is to actually journal or write it, a piece of paper, for example. If you think about, this is a person I'm having some conflict with, or this is an issue that I'm having some conflict with, take out a piece of paper. And why do I ask you to take out a piece of paper? Because it's important for you to dump those thoughts onto something external. The mind is very tricky and it's very slippery. So putting it out onto a piece of paper helps. So do that and then ask yourself questions. With this conflict that I have, what is my self-awareness? How am I aware of myself? What's at stake for me? What's important for me? Put it down. And that helps you see what is it? What are the possible triggers? Why am I so angry? For example, put it down. And that helps you start your self-awareness process. And then self-regulation will be, okay, now that I do this, how do I show up in a way that I will be proud of myself in this conflicting view? What should I show up as? How do I show trust as a person that I will be proud? So self-regulation, put it down. What could be possible for you? Then the third is social recognition. So social recognition talks about, so how is the other person thinking about this? How are the other groups thinking about this? And when I ask people this, they said, I don't know. Aha. Time to get curious. Time to get curious about how other people are seeing this. Why aren't they agreeing with me at this? What is that that's important to them that I'm not seeing? And the fourth one is then what do I do with this? What's the style that's going to work that collaborates me and them together? So just a simple putting it down and thinking through it and looking at it helps in so many ways. Another way that helps in terms of social recognition is having 360, getting feedback from each other. Hey, I went into the room, it looked like everybody's cold or whatever. Start talking about that with postmortem. And you will start to say, oh, I didn't pick this up. I didn't notice that John was unhappy. You know, that sort of thing. It starts to build. Again, it doesn't happen overnight, but we start by practicing it. Last but not least, I want to share some inner voice that's going to either limit your potential or actualize your potential. And so there are blockers and there's growth. And the reason why I show this too is so that you can hear yourself. The moment you say it, you catch yourself and you know whether or not you are blocking yourself from your true potential or actually growing it. All right. So are we ready? I've got 3 for you. The first one is, it's my nature. I don't like people. So that's it. It's my nature. It blocks. It's just a reason, an excuse to stop. No more. But if you think it's my nature and I can learn, I think EQ is a very, very learnable skill. It's a skill and you can learn. And so it's my nature. I may not be so natural, but I can learn. Immediately you get that growth effect. The second one is I have no time. And so I'd like to say 2 things about this. Having more EQ doesn't mean that you take more time. But I think a lot of people, when they say I have no time, they mean I am uncomfortable in that space. And so when you feel uncomfortable, I want you to start recognizing that discomfort is part of a growth in any process. And the third one, classic one, is I have tried and this doesn't work. And the other one I'd like to introduce is we're not going for perfection. We're going for growth and progress. So this is my last slide, and this comes from Warren Bennis, and he's a psychologist. IQ is a threshold competence, but you can use EQ to really bring out the best in yourself.
I'm Coach Wendy Wong, and for Leadership Matters, please like us, subscribe, and visit us at patadiri.com.